Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show, heard on the radio here in Southern Colorado and around the world as a podcast. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the last show of 2023. Yep, this is the last show of the year, just as I do this show right now, just hours away from 2024. And if you're catching this on the podcast or at a later date, well, hey, Happy New Year to you. Now, I've got a special edition today. We are going to look at some of the best interviews and moments of the show in 2023. We're going to play some interviews from Jimmy Ford, JimmyFordRacing.com. We're going to hear from Amir Bentatu. We're going to talk to Steve Emmers and more. It's all right here. And most importantly, too, we are going to play some of your car sounds as well. It's about 60 seconds. I made a 60-second montage of some of the most interesting, best, or weirdest car sounds that you sent into my show in 2023. There were a ton of them. I didn't get to all of them, admittedly, because there's so many good ones in there. But we're going to play that. I'm really excited. I'm kind of proud of that. And we're going to get to that on this edition of the show. And you know, one thing before we do that, I really do have to thank you for being a part of the show, because really, I mean, looking back at this, right? So I started this show a couple of years ago, just as a podcast, before it was on any of these great radio stations here in Colorado. And you know, never did I think, starting it as a podcast, that the show would take me to some amazing places, doing some amazing things, and allow me to take you along for the ride, because everything I do with this, you're along for the ride with it. You're a part of that. And, you know, when I started the show, look, I mean, I would just be a guy sitting in a room right now talking to myself about cars. And let's be honest, I would be totally fine, and I am perfectly capable of sitting in a room talking about cars for an hour to myself. I'm perfectly capable of doing that. But really, you being involved in it, you make it special. And without you, I wouldn't have been able to, you know, bring you to the Pikes Peak Hill Climb twice, not once, but twice. And not just the Fan Fest on the street. We broadcast the show live from there, but also the races themselves. Have made some great connections, met some amazing people. We've had a great amount of guests on the show in 2023, and I might be missing some of them, but we've had guys like Mike Narks from Dragon Drive Addiction. We've had Gregoire Blachon, Pikes Peak Hill Climb driver, obviously Jimmy Ford, Dai Yoshihara, Taka Aono, Amir Bentatu, Wesley Kagan. Oh, and I can't forget about OBD1 Kenobi. What would the show be without OBD1 Kenobi? Obviously him. We also had Sheriff Rich Smith on the show a few months ago talking about car theft. Steve Emmers. We've had guys like that on the show, and it's been really a treat. And just even recently, a few weeks ago, Jonathan Shaw, president of Hemmings. And I mean, this has been amazing, and you are the reason that this can happen. And I'm looking forward to 2024. I'll tell you that. And I do have some exciting plans, some changes to the production of this show for the better. And I'm excited to bring on a video editor for the show. His name is Jared. A big shout out to Jared. He's been helping me for a couple of months with some video work, and he's going to be the guy who's handling all the editing for the shows. And that's great because, you know, yes, you can find the show on YouTube. Yes, you can find it on Rumble and other places like that. But, you know, I want to do more of that. Yeah, you can also find it on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and stuff. But I want to do more, and Jared is going to be able to help make that happen. I'm also excited to announce the Chief Executive Officer of Car Memes and Social Media. I'm bringing on a guy, I'm going to announce him later here at the beginning of the year, who's going to help out on the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotiveadhd. And so that's going to be really exciting, and he's going to be able to help me kind of interact with you more. I love being able to chat with you on the Facebook page and see all the interaction that happens there. But sometimes let's be real, sometimes I've got a crazy schedule and I don't always have time to, and I don't want to leave you hanging. And so he's going to be able to fill in the gaps for me and help out a little bit. So I hope you enjoy having him on board as well. So that is going to be really cool. That's going to be really fun. The new year is going to be exciting. Also, just announcing it here, I'm going to have next week on the show Carlos Segura. He is a legendary designer, and he has a new book out about car design, like car logo design specifically. And actually, trust me, this is a really, really fascinating interview. You're not going to want to miss that. He's going to be on the show next week. And again, the fact that you are a part of this show is what makes all of this work. So I do want to thank you for that. Without getting all sappy and crying on the air and all of that stuff, I really do want to thank you for that, and thank everyone who's been on the show as well as a guest. I know I didn't name everyone who's been on, but you know who you are, and you know how important it is to me to be able to have you on the show. So now there you go. But one thing I got to get to here before we talk to Jimmy Ford, Amir Bentatu, Steve Emmers, all these great folks here. One thing I got to do is play you this. This is a montage I made of some of the most interesting, weirdest, and just fun car sounds that you send into the show. And you know how this works, right? You send your car sounds into my show, and I play them on the radio, and it's really fun. So what you got to do here is give this a listen, because this is really cool. It's in no particular order, and it's not an exhaustive list. I definitely got more car sounds than I was able to include in this. But hey, if you sent some in, see if you can pick out some of yours in this. Let's go for it. Beautiful indeed. Wow. I had no hand in actually creating those car sounds. That was you. That was all just 100% you. How cool is that? I mean, really, you made my day with that. There were some great sounds in there. There's some exciting ones, some crazy builds, some wild things, and obviously, too, some things that weren't cars. There was motorcycle noises. There was one of my favorites, a 3-cylinder diesel tractor. Yeah, how many radio shows are playing those on the air, right? But really, I have you to thank for that. And just a shout out, again, not an exhaustive list. So many more people sent me things than this, but thank you to Scott, Christopher. We've got car sounds as well from Josh Maldonado, like the king of car sounds. He sends me all sorts of stuff. Cameron, how about Patrick? Jonathan, Jackson, Lucas. Oh man, if I didn't name you, I mean, you know who you are. Now, hey, don't go anywhere. More Best of 2023 here after the break.
At the Speed Council, getting things done fast is our priority. We do everything fast, from driving, working, sleeping, and eating.
Someone help, he's choking!
This is Tim.
Hello.
And by the time this ad is over, he'll have bicycled across the earth 69 times. Nice. Even if our name sounds unfamiliar, you know our work. F1? Pfft, child's play. The world's first supersonic jet? Yep, that was us. Apollo 11? Also us. The fastest animal in the sea? Hell, we even wrote the Wikipedia article. Fast. And we're so dedicated to speed that we've genetically engineered the world's first hyperspeed speed machine.
With this scientific breakthrough, you can interact with and download your favorite automotive podcast a whole day early. How's that for fast? Learn more at facebook.com/automotiveadhd.
This message approved by the Speed Council and the Church of Fast Things.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD show. It's on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. Matt West here, hanging out with you for the New Year special. Yeah, we're looking back at some of my favorite moments and interviews from the show. This one was really cool. This was just even a few months ago. This was at the SEMA show in Las Vegas with a very special guest. Give this a listen. If you're just joining us, I am sitting here with Amir Bentatu from RS Future. He is also a TV show host on Motor Trend and a devout Honda guy. Is that a fair intro there?
That is as fair as it gets. Almost too much.
Too much?
I'm just a car nerd.
Can you have too much Honda though?
Never.
You heard it here first, by the way. Heard it here first. Now, Amir's got some really exciting projects going on. In addition to being a professional race engineer, you do racing yourself. You're not just sitting there doing R&D for guys. You're on the track. So I think you have a really cool idea of working both sides of that. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your company, RS Future, and what you do.
Yeah, so RS Future is my business. We make aerodynamic components, wings, splitters, various accessories that are all out of carbon fiber. It's all ISO 9001 aerospace grade, components. And it's essentially the stuff that I put on my car that people saw and they're like, can you make me one? And eventually turn it into a business. And then we also build... we have a branch of the business called RS Future Special Projects where we build high-level race cars. We're not like most shops in the sense of, you won't bring your car to us to do brakes or install coilovers. It's typically a ground-up build.
Okay.
Like we're working on a couple of very, very fast time attack cars that are going to be built, and they're like essentially year-long projects.
Wow. And are we talking like full chassis up, like build the chassis and everything on that?
Completely stripped to finished race car.
Wow. That is incredible. What sort of work does that take? Like, that expertise, like how do you have a lot of people who are, working with you to build that, or is it kind of a small team?
It's me and one guy.
Well, it's a small team there. Yeah.
It's very small. And a lot of the people that bring their car to me, they bring it because they want essentially me to work on it.
Okay.
And the guys that work on the car are part of my race team as well. So it's a very small, our shop is large. We have a lot of cars, but the team that builds the cars is very small.
Wow.
So it'll be like me and one primary mechanic. And then if we have, let's say something specialized, we need to do wiring and I'm not going to do it myself. I'll give it to like Rywire, who I just saw on my way, to see you. And like cage work and chassis work, all fabrication goes to Riley Stair from RS Motorsport. So we essentially facilitate the build in the sense of we'll do a lot of the build, but anything that's specialized, we work very closely with guys like Riley and Ryan.
Okay. Wow, that is cool. And so when you're building these cars, you're pulling from your knowledge base, your background, your experience as well as a driver. I think you probably, I don't know what your competition is like, but I think a lot of guys who build cars don't drive cars too.
Yeah, I would say like I have a very unique set of skills in the sense of I can drive, and we've won multiple championships. We won 3 Global Time Attack Street Class championships in a row. Wow. And I also can build cars, and I'm also a professional race engineer. So I kind of am a jack of all trades. I wouldn't say I'm the best or incredible at either of those, but have a well-rounded skill set.
Fantastic. And now let's talk a little bit too about your car, well, one of your cars, the Time Attack NSX. So it's you don't have the stock engine in it. Not much of the car is really stock. Give me a little bit of a rundown on that car.
So it's an unlimited class Time Attack car that we converted from street class to unlimited over the last year.
Okay.
It weighs right around 2,000 pounds. With the last turbo, made 730 at the wheels. We have a new turbo that should make right around 900. It's essentially as far as you can push a global time attack unlimited class car per their rule set.
Okay.
So like we cut off the rear of the car, made a tube structure to support the wing and everything else. The car runs like a 355 rear tire, 295 front, carbon. I mean, essentially the only part on the car that isn't composite is the roof.
Okay.
And it's actually here at SEMA. We just debuted a new livery, and then we were giving away a couple hundred banners yesterday with Max Boost.
Wow.
Dennis Kako, who's the designer of, or the artist for Max Boost and Autocannon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty intense car. Lots of Japanese parts that are very authentic. It's Midnight Purple 2, which is an R34 GTR color. I'm very particular about the aesthetics of my car, so it looks as fast as it goes.
That is awesome, and that's you're running. So you have a K series engine in that too.
Correct. Yeah. So
now, what? And a lot of people are like, a K in a NSX.
Yeah,
Whoa! What happened to the
blasphemy.
C series? Right? What was the idea behind that?
So when we decided to build the car, I looked at all of the options. The first, obviously, being to build the C series. The second to be to J swap it, which is the other V6 that Acura makes or Honda makes. That's a lot more affordable. And then the third was to put in a K series. So I looked at everything as in what is the cost of the base engine, what is the availability, and what is the tunability.
Okay.
As in, like, what does the aftermarket have?
Right.
And the K series is essentially unrivaled in the import market. It's like, of the engines in the import scene, it would be like 2Js, K series, B series, even like, I mean, I would even call the RB26 a great engine. It's kind of a piece of crap, but
I know several
Nissan
guys who have those engines, and I think they would actually agree with you.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they would.
You can make them excellent. It just takes like $100,000. So the K, essentially, for like $6,000, we can build an engine that'll hold the power we're holding for a full season. And it also saves a lot of weight, and parts are very readily available. So I can go on to Turn 14, order every part I need, rods, pistons, send it to the machine shop, and in a month I have an engine.
Yeah.
Whereas like for a C series, if I were to blow mine, I essentially couldn't find another one for probably 6 months.
Right. Right. And that was, for me, just speaking personally, I race in some of just the local kind of competitive scene down in Colorado. I do autocross. I've done some of the local time attack and stuff. And that's been an issue for me with my Honda S2000 is I've been through that F-Series 3 times.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it's never easy finding parts for one. And even small stuff, right? Like if you need an alternator, I can't go to like AutoZone and get an alternator for it.
Yeah.
But if it's a K series, I can.
So, I mean, literally exactly that. We were at Road Atlanta 2 years ago. Our alternator failed and went to the AutoZone that was 3 miles from the track, bought one and put it back in the car.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
so it's
you
like,
just can't beat that parts interchange.
it's a 4-cylinder LS is what it really is.
Yeah.
So it's, I get this question a lot in the sense of like, what engine would you choose? If you want to make over 1,000 horsepower, probably like an LS might be a better option. Under 1,000 horsepower, the K is essentially the best option you can have.
Okay, fantastic. And the K series, you know what? It's a 4-cylinder, but it makes a great noise when you rev it all the way out.
Absolutely. And we run a 321 stainless manifold, so it's very thin, into a titanium exhaust and dump pipe. And it sounds like a Super GT500 car. So Riley did an amazing job with the exhaust. So I was actually nervous. The one thing I was kind of scared about was if I changed to the 4-cylinder, I was going to hate the sound of the engine. Mm-hmm. And I actually like it more than the 6.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That gives, if you were questioning the K-swap idea, that might give you some inspiration there. Now we got just a little bit of time
K
left.
is the way.
K is the way. What's a dream build for you?
So the current NSX is actually what we call the Mule. It's the one that we're testing with.
Okay.
And we have a second NSX chassis that we're going to be building into the like full-on unlimited. It'll fit into the international unlimited class in Global Time Attack, and it'll fit into the rules for World Time Attack. And it is essentially going to be like a stress member rear. So if you don't know what that means, it's essentially the engine and the transmission are what the structure of the rear of the car. So like at the B pillar, the engine and trans will be connected to the roll cage, and everything connects to the engine and transmission. The front will be completely tube framed, so it will be like a prototype car, like an LMP2 car.
Yeah.
In an NSX form with an NSX tub, and we're taking everything we know from this car and we're testing things like can we push this engine to 1100 horsepower?
Wow.
And if it doesn't, we'll put a VR38 in it. That's the plan.
Okay, so you're going for that really structurally sound, really stiff, tie it all together. That's kind of something you see with like real like competition race cars, you know, like purpose-built ground-up chassis. Everything's tied together.
Exactly, like Formula 1, Formula 2, most Super GT cars, DTM, are all stress member cars where it's like they're proper race cars to save weight, or they're proper race cars and they do stress member to save weight. And so taking the lessons from that and applying it to our car.
That is amazing. So a car guy like you, that's the dream car.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, well, I want a Ferrari, or no, this is next level.
No.
This is next level right here.
I'm lucky in the sense I get to drive a lot of Ferraris with my clients that I do coaching for.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I drive an E46 M3 on the street, and that is plenty for me on the street. And all I want is to build fast NSXs.
That is an amazing dream, and I think you're really going a long way to accomplish that. I think you're being an inspiration to guys like me as well, and people who are listening to this and hearing about what you're doing. I mean, when it comes to like the tuner, dream job, you're kind of living that right now.
Oh man, it's such an honor to hear that, and I'm very fortunate for the career that I've kind of fallen into. It's just been, I was too stupid to stop and kept going after it for years. And it all kind of fell into place.
Absolutely. That's a very humble way to put it. It's very cool what you're doing, and
I appreciate it.
And you've done all of that, and now you can also check off, you've been on the Automotive ADHD show twice now.
Which is the most fun podcast I've been on. I've done quite a few of them, and this was the one that I looked forward to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. My guest is Amir Bentatu. You can follow him at RSFuture_Amir. Really check out what he's doing, because it is mind-blowing. Of course, you can watch him, too, on Super Street Super. That's the second time I did that. Yeah, I gotta talk. I know I talk for a living. Super Street Garage on Motor Trend, and he's doing some amazing stuff in addition to coming on my humble radio show and podcast. Amir, thank you so much for coming out here to SEMA to join me here on the show.
The pleasure was all mine, man. Thank you so much for having me on again. I hope to be on in the future.
Hey, don't go anywhere on this New Year's special. Coming up after the break, my interview with Steve Emmers, the guardrail guy.
Every day, thousands go without the ability to buy necessary and life-saving parts. Parts like turbos, coilovers, and wheels.
I'm Steve, turbocharged BRZ. It doesn't run because I can play with my connecting rod through the hole in my block.
Project cars sit unfinished, waiting for parts, collecting dust.
My name is Todd, and I bought a rotary.
It's okay, bro. We'll swap it.
But no more. You, yes you, can make a difference. More information is available on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD.
And we're back for another segment here on the Automotive ADHD show. Heard around the world as a podcast, also here in Southern Colorado on the radio. If you're just joining us, my guest is a guardrail safety advocate, Steve Emmers. You may know him as the guardrail guy. Steve, thank you again for joining me here on Automotive ADHD.
Thanks for having me.
And so we were talking about in the break a little bit, how I came across your videos on YouTube, and, I was scrolling through YouTube Shorts, and I found one of your videos, and that took me down a rabbit hole. I watched a bunch of your videos, and that's really what got me thinking, we need to make people aware of the inherent issues that are happening on our roads right now. And so, we look at guardrails as an example, and that's a lot of your main focus. We drive by them every single day. We don't bat an eye at them. Maybe we see one, wow, that one's twisted up and damaged, and then we don't think about it. But tell me a little bit about guardrails again, and how they've changed over the years, and how, especially with EVs coming into the mainstream, EVs are really heavy. How does that change how guardrails need to work?
So a lot of this goes back to force, kinetic energy. And it's made up of two things, mass and velocity. And so one thing that's happened over the years is the velocity has increased of the vehicles. And the mass we knew we had to anchor the ends. We also started seeing as SUVs and pickups started growing in height, the height has been raised now to 31 inches. We still have a lot of very old, low rail that is unanchored, even though, the anchors we've been saying since 1964. I have a news article in 1961 from Popular Science. But with EVs, going back to that whole mass, the issue of mass, it's devastating. Guardrails are tested at 5,000 pounds, a 5,000 pound pickup. And I've recently looked at it. There are 118 EVs that are over 5,000 pounds. We can't protect them. These larger ones, the Hummer, the Ford pickups, we cannot protect them. They are going to go through these guardrails, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, the University of Nebraska is studying that, but it's a huge problem, and very, very few people are talking about it. A few people at the Department of Defense, a few people at the University of Nebraska. But, we need folks like Elon Musk who, partly have given us the problem to help us find the solution.
Absolutely. And when you look at those EVs, you look at the weights of those cars. I've talked in length about EVs on my show here in the past. And one thing is, they're insanely heavy. That F-150 Lightning, it's a cool truck. It comes in at about 9,500 pounds. And that's something I think very few people consider when they get behind the wheel of it. If you get behind the wheel of a big box truck, for example, that might be 10,000 pounds, or, maybe you've got a truck and a trailer, a pickup truck with a trailer, you got 10,000 pounds, maybe 12,000 pounds. You're cognizant of that weight, about that weight, but the way they've designed EVs, they've designed them to, for one, stop well and turn well despite their mass. And that causes, I think, the perception behind the wheel. You don't think you're driving a 10,000 pound hunk of steel filled with flammable batteries down the road. I think people don't think of that. Is there, when you're looking at guardrail design, I'm sure the manufacturers, the designers, the engineers have to build a compromise between guardrails stopping light passenger vehicles versus commercial trucks. Are you seeing, at least in your opinion right now, are you seeing any of that development starting to make its way, or is there a difference in how they design those? What are your thoughts on that?
Guardrails are not designed for vehicles over 5,000 pounds, period.
Wow.
There are times when they will perform, but they're not designed.
Okay.
So I would anticipate that like a 8,000 pound vehicle with a number of these systems, they would do quite well, but they're not designed there. And as we get into overcapacity hits, where say we have one of these terminals on a road that's 75 miles per hour, it was only tested at 62 miles per hour with a 5,000 pound pickup truck. If we don't have a system that has built-in excess capacity, one of the big issues that I identified with the device in my daughter's crash and other similar devices is there is no excess capacity, and those people are done for. They're simply they're being handed a 50-foot rope, and they've got a 100-foot cliff to go over, and it's going to be ugly. And so, one of the things we really have to do is have our automotive manufacturers, we need some design standards that they're going to try to meet. But we also, it brings up a great opportunity. The best guardrail is going to be the smart guardrail, the guardrail that is communicating with our EVs. There's some huge opportunities here to develop a smart system that's actually encouraging the vehicle, move 3 degrees away from me because you're about to hit me. So that communication, those opportunities, that's where the future lies.
And that's interesting. That's something I hadn't even thought about when it comes to smart technology and say vehicles that have, semi-autonomous abilities and things like that. Now, you spend a lot of time going on the roadways, a lot in Tennessee, and you do travel some looking on the ground. You're on the road looking at guardrails. You're documenting things. You're sending that documentation to political officials, but likewise, you're also working behind the scenes doing some of this political advocacy. You've dealt with state and local lawmakers extensively. Why is this a partisan issue? And, because I don't feel like a crash in kinetic energy and physics is very, very partisan, but where have you seen political success and roadblocks with this?
So I have seen political roadblocks, red and blue, and I've had success, red and blue. And so what I've learned is one of the things is we have 53 state DOTs technically, because we count a couple, Guam and DC and Puerto Rico, but I go with the people that will work with me. If you got a dance partner, you better dance. If you have somebody who won't dance, then you got to wash your hands and move on to the next one. But I have not seen it be partisan, but I have seen, recently we had a great success in Florida with Governor DeSantis with probably close to $100 million worth of guardrails replaced. 1 in every 3 guardrails in that state was fixed. It were either significantly repaired or replaced. At the same time, Disney, which is known as an ultra-liberal corporation, spent $13 million replacing guardrails. I've not had very good success with Governor Newsom out in California. Just ignored a crash where 4 active duty Marines were killed hitting a damaged product that had been there for 6 years.
Wow.
But I've seen the same dismissive attitude from Governor Charlie Baker, a Republican, or Governor Chris Sununu up in New Hampshire. So I wish I could put a red-blue label on this, but it's really about political obstinance with some of these folks who just are. Some of it's class. I think in California and the Northeast, they were not really interested in listening to who they considered to be a redneck from rural East Tennessee. But if somebody shows up and says your house is on fire, I don't care if they're black or white or liberal or Democrat or Republican, or I don't care. If my house is on fire, I'm getting out.
And
so, you don't shoot the messenger.
Hey, you're listening to the best of the Automotive ADHD show and the New Year's special. Now, my interview there with Steve Emmers, if you missed the interview, I can't do it justice right here on the show in one short segment. You need to go back and listen to the entire episode of it. It is available as a podcast wherever fine shows, and mine are downloaded. YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, iHeart, Amazon, wherever those shows are, go look it up. And I really love this interview with Steve because he is so devoted. His motivation and devotion to the cause is just outstanding. So you need to hear the entire interview. Now, that being said, coming up after the break, I'm excited for this one. Jimmy Ford, Pikes Peak hill climb driver. He's joining me right after this on Automotive ADHD.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Speed Council proudly presents Automotive ADHD, now on video.
For better or for worse, subscribe to Automotive ADHD, now playing on YouTube and Rumble.
There we go. That is Jimmy Ford's Ford Bronco, ripping it up the mountain, Bronxzilla. And joining me right here, I am excited to have you, Jimmy, on the show. How have things been going?
Oh, man, they started out a little bit rough, but they've come around, and now we've made it to the Fast 15, and I am excited for this weekend.
Dude, I know. The Fast 15, that is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
That is an accomplishment, really.
It's a dream, really.
Yeah, and what's amazing, too, I've been talking to a few people here and there, and they're like, I can't believe that a vehicle like that Bronco, which is maybe not the most aerodynamic thing, they're like, he got it up there in the Fast 15. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Dude, that is spectacular. That's some awesome driving, some awesome work on the Bronco. What has it taken so far to get up to here? How have things been going? Like, give me an update on that.
Oh, man, if I could tell you what I would be here all night telling you the stories it took to get here. I mean, we've been through a couple of engines this year already on Pikes Peak.
Well, you said on like one of the first practice days, you lost one of the engines.
Yeah, we spun a rod bearing, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but we spun a rod bearing. So we went to put backup motor in. Backup motor was leaking water down into the cylinder. So from there, we put the third motor in, and we fired it up. Had this terrible misfire. We ran it anyway because we had to get some testing in. Mm-hmm. So we were running on 4 cylinders when we came back to the house on a V8. It was pretty terrible. It was actually pistons were coming up and closing the plugs up, and and we were really close to having a bad day on our third string motor. But we ended up shimming the plugs out, and I got back on the bottom section and left the start line, and it did a massive burnout. And I was like, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Once you light it up and you go.
Yeah, you feel the power and you're like, things are working now.
Dude, I love it. How have things been on the mountain for you? I know when I was on qualifying, standing next to the course, I mean, that's where I got that sound clip I played. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, you were cooking through there.
Man, that 18 motor, it makes 810 horsepower. And ironically, Leonard Vaschultz, that used to have the Bronco back in the day, built that engine for us. And so now we're like a true Vaschultz Bronco back in the day like it was. And
wow.
It's very exciting to have about 200 horsepower more than we had last year.
Oh, yeah.
And be able to, lay some rubber down on the track. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and especially you coming from dirt, being able to slide around a little bit more than usual, I think, like, coming from dirt racing, do you find that goes into your style when you're driving more?
Absolutely, especially when I leave the line, and, I do a burnout just to get the tires warmed up a little bit on the rear, and it definitely helps, but, that people kind of cringe a little bit on asphalt when people get sideways leaving the start line.
Yeah.
But I'm used to that. I'm used to driving sideways, so they cringe a little. And
people have said you're pretty rowdy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, the reputation makes sense.
Yeah. No, I love going around that first corner sideways. It's so much fun. And then I gather up my senses, and I'm like, hey, we're back on asphalt. Let's get it straight.
Yep. I love it. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because at the start line, I see a lot of guys who will, like, do these kind of baby starts.
Yeah.
To get up, like, a little bit, like, just kind of ease it and then take off. And you're just like, man, let's go.
Oh, I love it. I love being sideways all the way around the first corner. And some people they'll do a pretty nasty burnout, but they won't make it all the way around the first corner with that burnout. And I'm like, oh, let me lay some rubber down for you guys.
Awesome. I'm so glad the Bronxzilla is treating you well. The mountain's been kind of tough with the weather we've been having. How have you been feeling about that?
Yeah, it's been really tough because actually until this week, we've had 2 weekends of testing before this where we weren't able to test the top section. And that's really tough because the top section, it changes every year.
Yeah.
With the bumps and, relearning where the bumps are, where your line is. And we didn't get it tested till this week. So we only got 2 runs on the top, and I'm comfortable with the course and everything, but knowing where the bumps are, it's like it's a little bit shady. So we're there, but we gotta make it.
Well, and those bumps are just terrifying when you think about them. Like, especially if you're not expecting it. Like, you notice them in a car if you're driving up there, just normally. But you're doing, I don't know what speed you're hitting up there. 100 miles an hour, $120, $130. How fast do you think you get on some of the straights?
Yeah, probably $120.
Wow.
Yeah, $120, $125 is what we were coming up with. But yeah, it's definitely crazy coming into Bottomless Pit, and there's a bump at the end of the straightaway at Bottomless Pit when you're going downhill and you got to make a hard right. It's like, hey, there's a bump here. We got to go from 125 through the bump, make a hard right hand. But the other crazy thing is, I think that with so much weather that we've had this year, all those bumps have moved lower and lower on the top section. So I came out of, I guess you would call it Boulder Park. And last year there wasn't so many bumps, but this year on my first run I was like, hey, there's a lot more bumps here. So
yeah. And does that change how you're tuning the suspension on it?
It doesn't really change the suspension as much, but more about my line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And because especially, it's just when you think about if you hit one of those when you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, then it really upsets the car, and you got to watch out for spectators. I always try to keep them in the corner of my eye, because if I do make a mistake, that's the last thing you want to do is hit somebody or run off the road where somebody's standing to get close to them and stuff. So, it's a gamble. Racing always is. You know what you're signed up for when you go up on the mountain. But
and even for spectators, hey, you got to sign that waiver.
Exactly.
And I will say the officials are doing everything in their power to make it as safe as possible. And I think them calling it with the rain the other day, just calling the racing off is evidential of that. I think they've stepped up a little bit of their safety on that, obviously.
Exactly. And I want to give a shout out to all of the safety crew and everybody else too that goes up there on the mountain on their own time and doesn't get paid for it. So
right, they're
I
all
appreciate
volunteer.
them too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're all volunteer. I can't remember what the number was. They said something like they have 4 or 5 full-time employees for the hill climb, the actual organization, and that's year round. But everyone else you see up there, they're volunteer, and that's really good too. That being able to thank those guys because they put this on so we can go up there and watch race cars, and so you can go drive race cars
exactly.
up there.
yeah, and so it's just another thing to keep in mind. You got to push it as hard as you possibly can, but you also have to be safe and keep it on the road too, which is part of the balance. But on race day, it's that balance is a little bit tilted on the one side.
I can imagine. Now, do you have any predictions on for race day coming up? Well, how do you think it's going to go? I know the weather's kind of like no one knows what that's going to do, but everything else, the car, how are you feeling for race day?
Oh man, I'm feeling really good for race day. Actually, since it got canceled yesterday, we ended up going down to PPIR today and doing a little testing in the morning. We made a few adjustments, and I'm super happy about what we've changed, and I think we're going to be even a little bit faster than we were in qualifying. I have a little bit that I was saving from qualifying day, but the adjustments we made, I predict that we'll be just a little bit under 10 minutes, I'm hoping.
Dude, nice. That is going to be cool. And getting into the Fast 15 already, at this point, that's an accomplishment on its own. So all that's left now, I say all that's left like it's a simple thing, but all that's left is just do the whole thing on there.
Yeah, we want to make it to the top. That's definitely our first goal, but getting under 10 minutes, that's a whole nother goal in itself. That would be, it would be, people keep asking me, are you on cloud right now for making it into the Fast 15? I'm like, yeah, my answer is I'm on cloud 409 because that's what we qualified as. So, yeah.
JimmyFordRacing.com. Go check him out there. And funny story after that interview happened. That was live on the streets of the Pikes Peak Hill Climb Fan Fest, and there's tons of people walking around and stuff, and we filmed it. It's also up on the YouTube as well as the Rumble page, but Jimmy pointed out something after the fact. I went to a get-together him and his family hosted to unveil his new race car, which, I shouldn't talk about that yet. Hey, that's going to be really cool. It's coming up here in the new year. But anyway, I went to a get-together with him, and they said, hey, did you watch the whole video? And I'm like, well, I didn't really watch the whole thing end to end. And they said, okay, we'll go to this time cue in the video. And we pulled it up on the big screen in their garage, and everyone watched it. Somebody in the middle of our interview decided to look at the camera, turn around, and moon the camera. Look, things happen when you're live on the streets doing shows, and that was one of them. But you know what? It was hilarious. We all got a laugh out of it. We watched it like 100 times over. So whoever that guy was who did that, if you're listening, come on, man. I'm not trying to encourage this in the future, but I got to give you a sticker or something at least. Now, hey, thank you so much for being a part of this show in 2023, making it what it is. I am so excited to bring you more Automotive ADHD in 2024. I'll see you in the new year.